You know you've missed me, and I'm just here to say, we'll take you back. Welcome to the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. I'm your host, Stan Lund, and I've got two guests with me today. First off is my co-host, Jordan Ferber.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest today, Mr. Aaron Sparrow, the writer of the Boom and Joe Books Darkwing Duck comics. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being willing to come on.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, I've listened to a lot of your guys' reviews, a lot of your guys' podcasts. And so, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So before we get into our review today, which we are reviewing Darkwing Duck issue 4 from Dynamite, there's a couple quick news stories. First off, the Dynamite comic series has been extended into an ongoing series. It was originally supposed to stop at issue 6, but we're going beyond that apparently.
Yeah, at least go to 12, get another trade out of it.
Probably, for whatever good or bad that may bring with it. But as we keep saying, it has been improving. Also, there's apparently a Disney 100 Years coloring book that does feature the Disney Afternoon on a couple pages that'll be coming out.
So, also, the Diamond Select statue is now coming out in the summer.
All right, that's good news to know as well.
Yeah, so, the Darkwing, the Diamond Select Darkwing figure looks really good too with the Mega Duck variant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna be getting both of those when they come out, and hopefully it'll lead to a full Darkwing line.
I hope so. Diamond Select has a very spotty kind of history of like not finishing lines that they pick up, but I'm hoping that everybody buys enough Darkwing that they they continue, at least get through the Fearsome Five.
That would be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice to have like a full set of the Fearsome Five. Maybe you never get to a Jambalaya Jake or some of the lesser villains, although it would be great. But at least, come on, let's finish the main villains.
One last bit of news that's not quite Darkwing related, but it is Disney Afternoon, is Gargoyles is actually getting a spin-off comic called Gargoyles Dark Ages.
It's funny, the last time I had lunch with Greg Weisman, while I was hanging out with him, he was actually going through his files looking for all the Dark Ages material. And he was nice. Don't say anything. I'm like, I'm not gonna say anything.
Well, I'm definitely excited to check that out. The current Gargoyles run has been very good.
Yeah, and I don't know what issue has come. What was the most recent issue that came out?
Issue 5.
Issue 5, which is where I think it really starts to come together. I think there was a lot of like building blocks being put into place, but I think 5 is really where it starts to move.
Definitely. So before we start our review, Aaron, how about you give us your thoughts on the Dynamite run?
I think it's for very little kids. I think that it's marketed to collectors, which is there seems to be a weird disconnect with its 400 different covers. Mostly all aping Batman, classic Batman covers, but without any of the humor or, they're not injecting any Darkwing into that. It's just basically kind of like Batman riffs, which I think is a mistake. But I think that the interior is obviously written for very small children. It's not particularly sophisticated in its storytelling. It's very kind of, easily understandable. So, I think it's strange that those two things seem to be in conflict. But overall, like, for picking it up and reading it to like a 5-6-year-old, I think it works.
All right. And how about the art inside? Any thoughts on that?
I think that there's actually some. I mean, I think it varies. There's some panels that I think look really good. I think that there is a very cartoon show feel to it, more so than James, who was a very stylized version of Darkwing. It's very much his style, but I think that people came to accept that as kind of the standard. He did such a good job on it. He really made it his. So this is a little more, like I said, it's a little bit of a pitch down the middle. I think that there's art problems here and there, and I think that, like, especially in the first issue where there was some stolen art and some things that like even like there was just like some direct, like it was like Silvani's art just redrawn, but it's his poses and things like that. But you know, that may be too. That issue had a lot of filler. That issue had like apparently like the entire originally the entire Darkwing song was going to be in there, which was kind of a page waster. So what I have to assume is, you know, the art swipes, the you know, using the song and then just having to, you're not being allowed to use the lyrics because of music rights, and then having to write another song just to take up page space. I have to assume that you know, Dynamite just put a really tight deadline on these issues. So the creators weren't able to necessarily do their best work. They had to kind of figure out some shortcuts.
All right. Any other thoughts, or is that pretty much everything you wanted to say about the Dynamite stuff as an overview?
I think it was. I mean, I think it's like I've gotten a lot of messages from people who are, you know, saying like, you know, oh, we don't like it as much as your stuff. We don't like it as much as what you and James did. We wish you and James were on the book. I really, really appreciate that. You know, James and I really tried to be very ambitious. We try to be very ambitious in everything that we do. We tried to get to the heart of what everybody loves, but then also give you more, you know, more. I think that my approach to everything is give them what they want, but in a way that they don't expect. So I think that ours is a more sophisticated version of Darkwing, and for whatever reason, Dynamite decided they wanted to go in a more kiddie direction. Although I would contend that our books were very accessible to kids, just based on the sheer amount of books I've signed for little kids that love it. But yeah, they wanted to go in another direction, so this is where we're at.
Well, we all do appreciate your take on Darkwing.
Yeah. Considering how much some of those books are going for on eBay right now, a lot of people are.
Yeah, I think there's. I mean, I hope that the reprints are in the future. I think that there's another company besides Dynamite that might be looking at doing that, which would be absolutely great. I don't think Dynamite would want to do it. I don't think they want the comparisons out there. But you know, I think there's nothing stopping other Disney licensees from doing it. So I'm hopeful that for those of you who haven't gotten a chance to read The Duck Knight Returns, you know, up through the Definitively Dangerous edition, you know, that's the version that I'd really like to see out there for everybody, because that's our most pure version of the work.
Who knows? Maybe Fantagraphics will be one of the ones that reprint it.
I'm happy to I'm happy to sign anything that they put out.
They've been doing great work with their reprints of the older Disney Afternoon stuff, so hopefully.
The Fantagraphics stuff is really good. Their collections are really good. They're overseen by David Gerstein, who is you know, is an absolute Disney nut. That guy has an encyclopedic knowledge of Disney comics. So I think that those collections come together really well. They're really attractive. They're really like sturdy and well built, and they look good on a bookshelf. So yeah, I can't recommend Fantagraphics collections enough.
Yeah, who knows? I know they've been reprinting some stuff that hadn't been in English before. Maybe they'll eventually reprint that French Darkwing comic.
Ooh, oh man, that'd be great. I see that you know, they're reprinting the Boom material in Topolino, but I don't know that they're doing the scripts are based off of the corrected scripts in the Definitively Dangerous edition, and I don't know how they survive translation, because there's some jokes in there, especially I feel bad for anybody who was trying to translate over the Definitively Dangerous edition or the Joe Books material, because our alliteration was so heavy. You know, when Darkwing would go into it, he'd like, I can't even imagine trying to put that in another language.
But it felt so right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jordan, you ready to review this issue? So I got this cover, and Jordan, you got what cover there? The lawnmower cover.
Yeah.
So this is, of course, issue 4. Once again, written by Amanda Dibert and the art by Carlo Loro. Jordan, how do we start this issue?
We start off with Drake mowing his lawn and Morgana trying to convince him to go back to a life of crime fighting.
With a suspicious glass of lemonade.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really lemonade. I don't think I want to know what it is.
Yeah.
But Drake is he's certainly missing his superhero alter ego, as the shapes he's cutting into his lawn seem to suggest.
Yeah, it looks like he even though he wants to give up being Darkwing, he just can't do it. At least subconsciously, anyways.
Well, luckily for Drake, Goslin comes running in with the plot.
Yep. she comes running in telling them that Bushroot's attacking the school and that Honker is still pudding.
Yes, he is. And of course, at first, Drake's like, Bushroot is cooking citizens, which that would be a terrifying day if Bushroot ever actually did stuff like that.
It's like, what you've done to my beautiful vegetables, I'm going to do to all of St. Canard. Just starts frying them in oil.
But of course, Morgana reveals that the pudding was actually her doing. You were supposed to be a reformed criminal. I am. This wasn't business, just pleasure. I guess Morgana's still got a bit of a dark side to her.
I guess this is more of early Morgana than later Morgana.
Yeah, because it doesn't really jibe with Morgana's characterization later in the show, like when she really, was fully reformed and really interested in her relationship with Darkwing. So it's got to be, it's kind of nebulous when this is set.
Yeah. Also, we should mention that Gosalyn's eye color has changed back to the correct green instead of being blue.
Yeah. That's one thing I'm happy. That's been corrected.
It's nice when editors pay attention, right?
Yeah.
When they don't just phone it in.
Yeah.
But Drake doesn't think he needs Darkwing to deal with this. He decides to tackle Bushroot as Drake Mallard. How does that go, Jordan?
Well, it doesn't go too well for him. He pretty much immediately gets caught.
Yeah, unfortunately. So it's time for Plan DW, or at least Gosalyn hopes it is. Not quite yet, though. What happens next, Jordan?
Well, with all the planes attacking people and Morgana trying to help, Drake finally realizes that he has to be Darkwing again.
Yeah. That he does, though he does it in the most Drake/Darkwing way he could, where Morgana suggests it, and he's like, not now, I've just had an amazing epiphany. I should become Darkwing again.
Yeah. And then we get his big I am the Terror.
Yep. Want me to handle that?
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I'm going to apologize right now, Sparrow, or because they actually steal your guys' tagline in this.
Do they? I read through it, but I did not notice that.
I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the neighbor's ill-timed leaf blower that wakes you too early in the morning. I am the shears that prune the weeds of destruction. I am the Darkwing Knight who returns. I am Darkwing Duck.
I liked it until the Darkwing Knight part. Like I thought I would have, like, if I was the editor, I would have asked her to change destruction to villainy. But otherwise, I thought those two were pretty good. But yeah, that last one kills it.
Yeah, definitely. Though you guys have created the Duck Knight Returns.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it does go for a little bit long though, because Darkwing he probably would have stopped at the too early in the morning part. He probably would have stopped there, and he wouldn't have added the part with the shears and the Dark Knight.
Yeah, it's usually an I am the Terror, a alliterative thing he does, and then he is Darkwing Duck. It's usually 3 parts.
Yeah, three parts is, you can go 3 and it works. 2 is best. The I am the terror that I am the terror that flaps in the night, and then into the second one, and then that's usually sufficient. But like sometimes, depending on how you're pacing out the action, if he's appearing in a cloud of smoke, he might do the third.
Yep. So Darkwing is back. He's back in the costume, and he rescues Pudding Honker with a weed flack. And then Gosalyn, for some reason wants to high five Honker, but they only have 4 fingers. How can they high five anyone? Wouldn't it be a high 4?
It is. You know what? That's something that I never even thought of. I don't think we ever had a character say, high 5, but I've never even considered that. Yeah, it would be a high 4.
Yeah.
Of course, to this point and throughout the rest of this comic, Gosalyn still has not uttered any of her catchphrases. This is 4 issues in. No King Gear, no Cool Beans, none of Gosalyn's catchphrases are here.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying for like the last issue. Like, why hasn't Gosalyn said her catchphrase yet? Like, either of her catchphrases yet.
I think for me in this series, Gosalyn is the character that's most out of character. You know, she doesn't seem to be, you know, a lot of times, you know, here she just kind of like runs in and says, you know, oh, you know, this is happening. But generally, Gosalyn drives the plot in a lot of the stories. Gosalyn gets in trouble. Gosalyn discovers something. She sets something in motion that ends up, or she derails something that Drake is involved in that sets the plot in motion. And, you know, she has a very specific, very spunky kind of personality that's very, very charming. Gosalyn was always able to walk the line of being the spunky kid who doesn't really become annoying. You know, in a lot of properties, that'll happen. Like they're trying to write the kid as so like, you know, like just like a clever shrunken adult. And they just come off as like really, really annoying. And Gosalyn's always been able to walk the line really well. And we try to do that with her as well. But yeah, I feel like Gosalyn really needs some work in this series.
Yeah. So what do we got next, Jordan?
So now Darkwing faces off against Bushroot.
And is Bushroot doing this on his own volition?
It looks like he doesn't want to say who he's working with.
Like basically he was told he could do this by somebody, though we don't know who yet.
No, we probably have a few theories.
Dun dun dun.
But Darkwing reveals a new bit of tech that he invented.
So I guess he's a man of science.
Yeah, still not really sure when Darkwing became an inventor, but
I always assumed he had bought most of his equipment, but I guess he's an inventor now.
Well, I thought Josh used to provide it.
I think that there's a fair amount of wiggle room there because you know, Darkwing, obviously he had some gear, he had the rat catcher, he had some things. I think he's got some, you know, and we don't really know what he does for a living, you know, throughout the show. So I think that there's some wiggle room there for him, like creating some gadgets. Obviously, Launchpad built the Thunderquack. Yeah. But you know, I think that I'll give that a pass because there is wiggle room there. You know, we had a joke where we wanted to do a series with Tad called the One True Origin of Darkwing Duck, and it was going to be 4 issues, and each issue would be a different origin. So, you know, nice. we thought that would be funny. You know, Tad would be able to continue doing you know, ridiculous origins for Darkwing. But at the end, we kind of wanted to frame it like the Batman animated series where they're talking about, everybody's talking about all the campers are talking about their different versions, you know, or the kids are talking about their different versions of Batman.
Legend of the Dark Knight episode.
Yeah, and you know, they did like the campy kind of one too. And so we kind of want to frame it like that with a bunch of Junior Woodchucks. And then at the end, Darkwing shows up, and the kids all get scared, and they like all run off. And then you know, Gosalyn asks him, you know, hey, you never told me how you did get started anyway. And it just cuts to a memory of him sitting like Batman style, and he's you know, there sure is a lot of crime in this city. And then he turns and he's like, and I've got all these gas guns and all these hats. And that's like just that's kind of like how we end it, you know, just another ridiculous origin that, you know, is nothing. You know, so I'll give it to him for he invents some of his stuff. He invents his gadgets.
But yeah, he reveals a well, it looks like a gas gun, and I do like this little line here where Darkwing says, "Bushroot, you'll appreciate my newest invention as a man of science. Well, as a shrub of science." Like that sounds in character.
Mm-hmm. I can hear Jim Cummings saying that.
But Darkwing reveals his new weapon to be the Atomizer, which turns things into autumn.
Weird, but yeah, not really in line with his MO of things that he's invented. But you know, why? I think it would have probably been more effective to have Morgana in the story and have her cast a spell that has the same effect. But
yeah, Morgana kind of drops out of the story.
Yeah, especially since she was there at the beginning. You know, she just kind of disappears.
And this is all just me as like if I was the editor over this book, like things that I would be suggesting back to the writer.
Yeah. But Darkwing zaps him. He turns, autumnized, which means his purple hair turns like green and his green skin turns brown.
Well, I think it's more like a blue. His hair to more of a blue.
Well, blue. Yeah, I guess that is more of a blue.
Why not lean into the autumizer, the autumnizer of it all? And why wouldn't Bushroot be, yellow and there's like yellow and orange and like the leaves of autumn. There could be like some funny bits in there, just even if Bushroot was just like, oh my gosh, I'm beautiful, like it would be, you could really have some fun with that.
Yeah, but it puts him to sleep, and he's carted away, off to, I'd like to assume, the maximum security prison, but I'm sure that doesn't exist in this universe.
But we do get the return of Amanda Dybert's favorite character, Zan Allison. The mayor.
Still don't really see what she brings to this iteration of Darkwing. Like, if she was written differently, maybe, but she just kind of pops up.
Well, it's because in DuckTales 2017, Zan Allison was the straight man to Glomgold's wackiness. And here, she doesn't have she's not part of a comedy duo, so she's just like just another character. It's like it's an in name only type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if this were a continuation of what we did, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad it's not. I'm glad that they're doing their own thing that kind of like feels like it could fit before anything that we did. Even though I think that doing a redux of Darkwing not being Darkwing is, I certainly wouldn't have recommended going that way where I the editor on the book. I think that there is, you could do something there, but the thing about Saint Canard is that all of the characters within it, the mayor, the police, everybody has to have this sort of either they're stupid or they're disinterested. It's kind of like the big city thing, so the big city politics, you've either got somebody really dumb or somebody who's really out for themselves or somebody or just the populace who's very disinterested. Like, most of the gags come from the city not caring about Darkwing all that much. Mm-hmm. So I feel like there's a lot of things in the series that were just totally wrong from the beginning, like him being given a statue by the mayor. Unless you build to that and you establish that the mayor is a big Darkwing fan, like Launchpad. But I think you have to layer those things in to make them work. And so I think there's a lot of things here that they're just hoping that the fans just accept on the fly, that I think that really should have been built up.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what happens next, Jordan?
Well, now it's time to leave because everyone knows heroes don't stick around for cleanup.
Yep. We also get a pop culture reference here with the character saying, "We're going to need a bigger rake." Little nod to Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
I don't dislike that. But it does kind of feel like it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Darkwing, he picks up Goslin and Pudding Honker, and they abscond onto a roof.
And he strikes a very Spider-Man-esque pose.
Yes, he sure does. So Goslin asks how it feels to once again be the hero who flaps in the night, and Darkwing says that it feels right, and they realize that no matter what he does, he'd still have to worry about Goslin, that's parenthood. And if she's going to be in danger, he might as well be the duck best suited to get him out.
Yeah, and then some kid looks up and knows who Darkwing Duck is, and he's like, exactly. People know who he is.
Yeah. And then we get Morgana showing up again, who's very happy to have Dark back to his mysterious self. But not everything's quite back to normal. There's still one more thing Darkwing needs to make everything back to normal.
Change Honker back from Pudding?
Not yet.
One other thing.
So we do get a nice little moment between Darkwing and Morgana here, where Darkwing says, "Let's get dangerous," and Morgana's like, "Oh, come on, my family isn't that scary. Only when compared to your cooking. I'd watch what you say if you ever want to eat anything again." It's like, yeah, that's Morgana.
Mm-hmm. Very My Valentine ghoul.
Yep, and she tries to zap him. But no, Darkwing's here looking for someone else. So he uses a setting on the gas gun to start a campfire, which brings who does this attract the attention of, Jordan?
Morgana's dad.
Yep, Malakalo's back.
You know what? I can't hate on that. One of my big regrets in the series that we did is we never got around to using Malakalo and Morgana's family. We really had plans to do it, but never got the chance. So can't be mad about him showing up.
I do love this bit with them. Why couldn't you settle down with a nice zombie? You know I've never been interested in a guy with brains. Yeah, she has me. Wait.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So Darkwing says that exactly who he wants is right here. And at first, Malakalo thinks he's talking to him. He's like, "Excuse me? You know you've missed me, and I'm here to say I'll take you back." And Malakalo says, "Take me back? I don't even want you near my daughter." But, of course, who's Darkwing talking to, Jordan?
Well, it turns out that Launchpad was behind him the whole time. And he wants Launchpad back.
But Malakalo's not about to give him up without a fight.
And then they both get in a heated argument about who owns Launchpad and Morgana.
Of course, that doesn't exactly make Morgana happy. Does it?
Nope.
So she uses her magic to zip their beak shut, and she's apparently going to go back to her restaurant and ask Launchpad what he wants to do, which he's like, "Well, gee, the Thunderquack was always intended for Darkwing," and I love Darkwing's little victory pose in the back. Like, yes, I got one over Malakalo. So Morgana's about to leave, but Goslin reminds her, "Hey, you gotta change Honker back." So Honker's not pudding anymore.
See, but the joke, there's a lot of places that you can go with the joke of Honker being pudding. First of all, her changing him back, there should be a sequence where she changes him into several worse things while trying to get him back to normal.
Like a yak.
Yeah, because there's so like Morgana's spells are so so unpredictable, which is why when we did the Definitively Dangerous edition, we got to put our dialogue back in as opposed to Boom's rewritten dialogue. When she turns Ammonia Pine to mud, and Femme Appeal says, oh, really, really great move changing her to mud. And she's like, "Oh yeah, thanks. I was trying to, change her to something else." And then she's like, "Well, I'll never tell." It's kind of forgotten that Morgana's spells normally go awry. She's not a particularly competent sorceress. And that's why she's such a good pairing for Darkwing, because until he learns the lesson of the episode and, says the "let's get dangerous," he's not particularly competent. He always has to get over his ego and his insecurities before he becomes effective. So I think there's some character beats in there. I also think you miss an opportunity of Honker being pudding, of like either Tank trying to eat him. Obviously, if we were doing the book and Doofus was in the story, Doofus would be trying to eat him. Although I'm not sure you can do Doofus likes food jokes anymore. But what the heck, when we release our original material online, we'll do whatever we want.
Well, as long as it's not DuckTales 2017 Doofus, I have no problem with it.
Where he was like a little psychopath.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like original Doofus. I think that a lot of people feel like he's really one note and that he's just about like food jokes and about being the chubby kid. But I think that there's a lot more that you can do with that character. We had fun with him in our run, so I always love Doofus.
But I will say that Honker's time as pudding did come to one pretty good joke, though. Because the next afternoon, Binky offers Honker some pudding, and he runs away terrified. It's like, no thank you. And, of course, how do we wrap this up, Jordan?
Well, we wrap it up with Darkwing putting the atomizer to some more good use. And make it so that he doesn't have to mow the lawn.
Yep. You know what they say, pride, DW, pride goeth before the fall. Exactly. And in the fall, I don't have to mow my lawn.
And that probably would have been Iris out. And it probably would have been Iris out.
Yep.
So that's issue 4. Jordan, why don't you go first in terms of your thoughts?
Well, I do think that it definitely is an improvement over the early issues. There were a few jokes I did like, but there are still some things, like there's some inconsistent art. The whole like Bushroot kind of comes in and gets defeated very quickly.
That's unfortunately been a very big trend so far. It happened with Megavolt, it happened with Quackerjack, it's happened with Bushroot now.
It's kind of a problem of modern comics. It's in that the action sequences, like writers don't seem to be very interested in writing the action and writing, the confrontation between the villain and the heroes. They want to kind of get back to slice of life stuff. And I think it's to the genre's detriment. Because, what are we all here for? We're all here for, fun action adventure.
It does reset the status quo, so it'll be interesting to see what they do next. But I'd say,
let me ask you this, as guys that are reading this without my preconceived biases of what a Darkwing book should be, just as fans who haven't worked on the character. Do you feel that the entire story thread of him giving up being Darkwing and then coming back to being Darkwing, ultimately, does it matter? Was anything learned? Was there any kind of overarching important story element or was it just kind of spinning wheels for stuff to happen?
Definitely spinning wheels. For one thing, it didn't last long enough. It's like he quit superheroing at the very end of issue 2. He's not Darkwing for all of issue 3, and then issue 4, within like the first 5 pages, he's back to being Darkwing.
What I think would have worked better is if he would have been he would have given up being Darkwing for at least a couple issues, and then in the B story would be the city getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
While he's trying to kind of ignore it and just trying to go about his life, and then have like a culmination where him trying to put being a civilian ends up putting Goslin and everyone else in danger, and then that forces him to have to come back out of retirement.
I think that everything needs more weight. I think even in the cartoon, it had more weight. Like, for example, you do this story, like your writer comes and they pitch to you as an editor, and as an editor who actually cares, about the property. They say, hey, I want to do this story. He quits being Darkwing and etc. And you're like, okay, so what is the ultimate lesson learned? So the reason that he quits being Darkwing has to be a little bit heavier than just, oh, that was a really tough battle. I don't know if I should do this anymore. It has to be a little bit heavier than that. He has to either be beating himself up for failing, something that's going to keep him resisting the urge to go back and be Darkwing, because otherwise, why doesn't he just do it? At the beginning of this, he's clearly thinking about it subconsciously by mowing the lawn. So why isn't he just doing it? So you have to give him something like that. But you can't have 3 issues of Darkwing Duck with no Darkwing Duck action. Nice. So how do you solve that problem? The first thing that would come to my mind would be like Launchpad saying well, if you're not going to be Darkwing, the city still needs a hero. I'll be Darkwing. So then you still get action with Launchpad trying to live up to Darkwing, and there's a lot of comedy that you can have there. Mm-hmm. And then eventually Launchpad gets himself into a situation where Darkwing's like, okay, you know what? I have to do this. And by the end of the story, he realizes I am important to this city. Whether the city appreciates me or not, I do make a difference. And so then, that's kind of like the lesson that he had to learn. And that's the arc. That's the character arc. But it seems like these are just kind of just thrown out as okay, here's a book for you to read. It doesn't seem like there's that much kind of thought going into all of it. And I'd like to see more of that.
I think also what doesn't help is the accelerated pacing, where typically in like a Darkwing Duck episode, the story would take place over a matter of days, sometimes maybe like like through montages, weeks, but like here, like everything is happening in like a matter of hours. It seems like, or pretty much the accelerated pacing kind of makes it so that you can't like take your time and flesh stuff out. You gotta, it's like go go go.
Yeah, no, I definitely, and it seems weird to like center the issue around Bushroot, but then the back half of the issue is all about Morgana's dad and kind of like resolving that. It just seems like a weird pacing for a single issue. Like, I know, granted, it's a continuation of what's happened in the previous, but the pacing still feels off to me.
Yeah. So I'd say probably this issue I'd probably give it like a 3.
3 gas gun canisters?
Yeah. It has flaws, but there's enough stuff I liked here that I'm willing to give another chance with another issue.
All right. As for me, I thought it's definitely an improvement over the last issue. They have been progressively getting better. As I stated before, the use of the horrible sound effects has been toned down. The art has been improving. There's a lot less art theft as in previous ones, where the first 2 issues really, it was very almost every panel you'd look, you'd see either a stolen model sheet or a stolen frame from an episode, or one of Silvani's drawings. You could tell what it was, where it was from. That keeps getting less and less. There's the jokes are improving to a degree. Goslin's eye color finally fixed itself. We'll see if it stays the correct color or if it switches back, because they got the color right in the first issue. And then it was wrong for issues 2 and 3. So it could unfortunately go back, but I hope it doesn't. Bushroot, though, I think he was defeated way too quickly. I think Darkwing got back to being Darkwing a little too quick. And honestly, I'm actually a little worried about the next issue, because the next issue is going to have 2 villains in it, I can tell. One of them being the Liquidator, who, if they don't get his speech just right, he won't work, since he talks in ad speak. And the other villain being a DuckTales villain, Dr. No Good. So I'm not.
Well, that was one of the things that I noticed when they made the announcement, is they said like, oh, and bringing back Dr. No Good. And that's what told me that this wasn't being written by people who were fans of the show previously, or it wasn't being, or at least the marketing copy wasn't being written by fans of the show previously, because Dr. No Good is, like you said, a DuckTales villain. He was never a Darkwing villain, but he is mentioned in the Wikipedia fairly early on, because of course he's the villain in the, Darkwing kind of being a spin-off of Double O Duck, starting out that way. He's connected in that way, so he's mentioned in the Wikipedia. So I always felt like whoever wrote the marketing copy, for the book, just went through the Wikipedia ad and was like, oh, Darkwing's villains like Dr. No Good and Bushroot and Liquidator. It very much felt like, whether it was the editor or whether it was, somebody in Dynamite's marketing, didn't know anything about the show and just kind of like grabbed from, Google, what they could find on Google very quickly.
Right. But ultimately, I would also give this one 3. It's not the worst, but it still has room to improve.
Yeah, Liquidator's going to be tough. And maybe that's why there's 2 villains, is because Liquidator is not a character that's easy to write dialogue that makes sense, because you do have to have that ad speak. It's something that I came to very naturally, because as a fan of the show, I had so many of the characters and the voice actors like in my head, that it became pretty easy to do. But I do understand that even on the show, they didn't do a lot of Liquidator episodes because they didn't know how to keep him along those lines. And there's plenty of examples now that you can find. There have been decades of ads and pitchmen since then, from Billy Mays on up, to the guy who did the slap chop. You're gonna love my nuts. There's all kinds of. That one can't go in, but there's all kinds of guys that you can draw from. But some writers will definitely find Liquidator very difficult.
Yeah, especially since it's not just the ad speak. The other hard thing about him is, how do you defeat him? Like, he is, in terms of power, he's one of Darkwing's most powerful villains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we always had to come up with something new. So that's why in the Orange is the New Purple arc, we filled him with soap.
Yeah.
It's in my eyes. It is my eyes.
Didn't he look threatening though later when he showed up and he's all pink, but he had like the blood red eyes. Like when Andrew turned the colors back in, I was like, oh my god, he looks horrifying.
Any more thoughts from you about the Dynamite stuff, or?
I mean, it keeps going. I don't know. I don't know what the ultimate plan is. If it's just to put out like issues that can easily be, because when we did the second series at Joe Books, I was happy to be able to move away. At Boom, we were forced into those 4-issue arcs, so everything had to be like the threat had to be, a certain level, because you had to fill 4 issues to get like a single trade. The nice thing about Joe Books, and one of the reasons that I wished it continued, aside from the fact that we would have got to continue to tell our story, was that they really gave me the leeway to divide things up. So it's like, okay, well, we want to open with a big arc, so that's 3 issues, but then we're going to do a single issue that'll finish off a trade. And the fourth story was the Juggernaut story that we had to change to Nightmare. So we got to introduce a new villain. So in your first trade, you would get all the villains that you maybe hope to see, except for Quackerjack, because we had plans for him. And then you got a new villain. So in that first trade, you'd get some really cool stuff. And then in the second, we retold Doug Gray's story with Fluffy, because we wanted to reintroduce, we had reintroduced Fluffy, so we wanted to catch people up to speed. And also, as a fan of that story, if you guys ever check out Doug Gray's blog, which I think is Eye of Manana blog, he goes into great detail about how that story didn't live up to his expectations. The editor didn't really pay attention and kind of like butchered the story the way that he wanted it. So he had a redrawn version. So I kind of married the 2 versions together, but stuck to his story. It's his story. But to make it kind of fresh and original, we just set it from Darkwing's perspective, as opposed to, be kind of from Fluffy's perspective, or a straightforward story. We had it like Darkwing remembering. So like if there were any inconsistencies, you can chalk it up to, Darkwing, right. Which is why we did the jokes. Like when he thinks of him and Launchpad, he sees himself as tall and Launchpad is short, as opposed to the opposite way. And for some reason, they both had mustaches, So, things like that. And then, we got to do, another done in one. And then we got to do the two-part Bushroot story, which originally was just a 1-part story. And then issue 8 was going to reintroduce Frequencia, which was a character that Jim Magon created in one of the storybooks, where you'd get a cassette tape with it and it would tell the story.
Oh, yeah. I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's High Wave Robbery. Mm-hmm. Which I bought when I was a kid because I thought it was about Liquidator. I was like, High Wave Robbery. This must be about Liquidator. I'm so excited. And then, and Frequencia was obviously they just took things from the model sheets that could be easily approved. So in the book, she had a megavolt body, like jumpsuit, just without without the plug and the harnesses. And then she just was like a female duck, and they kind of just plopped Bushroot's hairstyle on her. And so we had a redesign for her in her reintroduction, where we were going to tell the High Wave Robbery story with a lot of new fun wrinkles. But she was going to have a completely different look. And that issue was going to be fun because in the book, Goslin is playing the tuba and driving Drake nuts. And we expanded that out to Goslin and Honker having a band called Honker Muddlefoot's Polite Preteen Rebellion. And they were singing a version of Dee Snider's "We're Not Going to Take It," except, it's Honker singing, we prefer not to take it. We understand we may have to take it, but if at all possible, we'd rather not take it at this time, So the band consisted of him on vocals, Goslin on the tuba, Doofus on the triangle, and Tank on drums. And so that's kind of where we were going to go. But when we found out that we were going to go on hiatus after issue 8, while Joe Books reevaluated their publishing line, we expanded the Bushroot story out to 2 issues, which was great because I would have had trouble. Once Bushroot came into the story, everything changed. The ending changed. Bushroot kind of took over, and him as a character, he kind of rewrote what I wanted to do. And it became a very sympathetic story, very character driven with him, and kind of gave him closure to, a portion of his character, his loneliness, his, wanting a bride. We got to give him like some closure that like a lot of fans really appreciated. So it ended up being a happy accident. But still, we would have liked to continue on because we had Frequencia coming. We had Quackerjack coming back. We had the mystery of what happened to Morgana and, Drake pursuing that again because her father comes to him and is like, where is my daughter? And so we had some fun stuff planned there. And there were two different ways that we were thinking of going with it. One was just doing a where she just just comes back and like nothing's wrong and everybody's like what we thought that would be kind of funny, but then we're like ultimately that doesn't although we can make a good joke out of it, it doesn't give you the payoff. So it's like, do we do a bigger story with her? Do we do like something that's really Morgana focused? I think fans would want that. So yeah, we had so many plans for things that we were going to do. You're going to get to see the Saint Canardians of the Galaxy. If Disney had approved it, we were going to try to work in a Mighty Ducks appearance. All kinds of fun stuff. But that's comic books, man.
Out of curiosity, would Claire have ever come back? Because I have it in my head canon that she would have eventually joined Quackerjack as like a Harley Quinn type character.
Really? You know what? Because since James and I are going to do, we are planning on releasing our unproduced content for the fans and continuing our story since Dynamite doesn't want to do it. We just figured, hey, we'll do it ourselves. We'll put it out as a free fan project. I don't want to give too much away, but I will say if you go back to issue 8 of the Darkwing Duck run and the Quackerjack scene, there are some clues in there as to where the next story was going to go.
Mm.
Well, thank you. That's some incredible information.
Oh, yeah.
I talk too much. Don't let.
Please, you do not talk too much.
Well, the thing is that I, like you guys and like the fans that listen to the show, I am first and foremost a Darkwing Duck fan. I love what Tad and his team created. I've always loved these characters. I've been fortunate enough to meet so many of the voice actors that are still with us. I haven't met Jack Angel, which is like one on my list, and I never got to meet Tino, and I never got to meet Christine. But it's like I've met Michael Bell several times. Rob Paulson. I've actually gotten to hang out with him. We had a limo ride together in Atlantic City one time. That was a blast. It was him and Jess Hartnell and just basically I'm riding with the Animaniacs. How crazy is that? So I've been very fortunate to be involved in small ways in their lives and their appearances and on panels with them. And part of what was really important to me, even before I met any of them, but when we started on the comic, was that all the character voices had to be right. And unfortunately, on the Boom series, since James and I got rewritten quite a bit, it didn't really come through. So once we got to the Definitively Dangerous edition, that really is where I got to show everybody like how much these characters' voices are in my head. And I can't do every voice, but I can do a close enough approximation of most of them that like I would write out the dialogue and then I would repeat it as close as I could to the voice actor's performance and determine like, okay, well, I could take this out. I could take this out. What they'd probably say it this way. I paid a lot of attention to that. I think character voice is really important. And I think it's something that's lost in comics. If you're reading a comic and you can move the dialogue balloons around and it doesn't make a difference who's saying what, you're not reading a good comic. You're not reading a good comic where the writer put in the work. Everybody should have a distinct voice in some sense. And again, moving away from action, I think is a mistake. Part of what makes Darkwing fun is the villains. And I think in the series so far, the villains have all gotten really short shrift. And I think that your concern, Stan, is very valid in the next issue that you're going to have 2 villains. So, it's probably going to be Liquidator's a henchman so that there's not much focus on him. And Dr. No Good will be the main villain because he's less challenging to write. And I think that does Liquidator a disservice because he's such a fantastic character. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. So as we start to wrap up, first off, Aaron, do you have anything that you want to plug or any shout outs you want to give?
First of all, just big shout out to Tad Stones, without whom none of us would be here talking about this right now. And to James Silvani, who always on Darkwing, my partner in crime. We're working on a little book right now called Kneel Before Doomface, which is going to be a crowdfunded book. And if you like kind of our wacky take on superheroes through Darkwing and things like that, there's going to be a lot of that type of humor in the book. It will be set for a little bit older audience, but and there will be stakes. There will be actual, the characters actually can die. There will be. That it will operate on that level, but a lot of the humor, a lot of the the superhero stuff that you've seen from us on Darkwing will be present as well. So if you guys just want to go follow me on Twitter and check that out, #KneelBeforeDoomface.
All right. Jordan, do you got any shout outs or anything to plug?
Oh, for shout outs, I'd like to shout out Tim Partridge, because he's doing a lot of really good work, digging up a lot of Darkwing art to share, as well as also telling people they should really go to all of our Harper's retrospective reviews and watch Tim's an hour-long documentary he made on Darkwing Duck. It's almost at 100,000 views, and he did an excellent job, and people should really go to watch that.
What was that again? To repeat that again for everyone?
Oliver Harper's retrospective reviews. Our friend Tim Partridge, he made an hour-long documentary on Darkwing Duck, and he did a really good job. Yeah, and also I'd like to plug my YouTube channel, Toon Logic Studios, where I do AMVs and do short reviews and stuff like that.
All right, and you kind of stole my main shout out, Jordan. I was actually also going to shout out Tim, because he gave me some very good advice recently, but I also want to give a shout out to Aaron Sparrow. Thank you again for coming on and joining us for this one.
Oh yeah, hey, thank you guys for inviting me. I was a little hesitant at first, because I was like, it is weird to kind of review the book, but hopefully I gave you guys at least some insight into how I approach it, and how I would kind of alter it if I were working on it as an editor and helping Amanda out. I think that it is an effective book for the audience that they're going for. I would like to see a little bit more as an older Darkwing fan.
Yep. And in terms of plugs, I guess I will plug my two YouTube channels, DMC Jedi Man and DMC Jedi Man Gaming. So if anyone wants to see, for the main channel, it's mostly trailer reactions, unboxings, and taste tests. And the gaming channel's obviously video game Let's Plays. So come check them out at some point.
Go check it out. He actually tastes honker as pudding on the channel and gives you his review.
Oh. I can't actually claim I did that, but for April Fool's this year, I actually did a taste test of Pilk, which is Pepsi and milk mixed together. It's as foul as it sounds.
You're not doing that crazy. So you are doing crazy stuff, but you're not. Just don't get into that thing where you're like, I'm going to eat the Darkwing Duck breakfast cereal from 1991.
Did they have a Darkwing breakfast cereal?
Not that I'm aware of, but I've seen guys do it with GI Joe stars and things like that. They'll pour a bowl of it and actually eat it, and it's like, oh, that is way past its fresh. Oh, don't do that.
I knew they had the fruit snacks, and I think there's a grape jelly bottle as well, and macaroni and cheese. But those are the only Darkwing food products I know of.
My assistant editor on Darkwing, Janice Orlando, she actually had a lot of those boxes of macaroni and cheese growing up. She's like, I've made my mom buy that just because Darkwing was on it.
Yeah, if I'd known about them, I'd probably do the same. I do remember having the fruit snacks as a kid, though. The Darkwing ones and the Tailspin one.
I'd love to find a sealed box of Darkwing fruit snacks. That'd be amazing.
That'd be something.
Who knows? They might still be edible. I mean, the fruit snacks. But once again, thank you for joining us on this. We are the St. Canard Files, the Darkwing Duck podcast. You can find us on all podcast apps. Any closing thoughts?
Again, thank you guys for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Until next time, everyone, stay dangerous and don't eat 30-year-old boxes of cereal.